All right, Brent Porcio, Kevin Schultz, Stephen Godani, the @TopVelocity #PitchingTips show, where you go to Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, ask a question about anything here at Top Velocity or pitching, and @TopVelocity #PitchingTips, and we're going to answer it here like we are right now. What's our next question?
Ryan Messer-V asked, is powerlifting as beneficial to pitchers as Olympic lifting?
The only thing I want to classify is the difference between the two, and then Kevin Schultz is going to put in his input, and so is Stephen Godani. I'm USA weightlifting certified. Kevin's got a degree in kinesiology, and you're USA weightlifting certified. He's young and training right now, so no certifications yet. But just based off my experience and what I know, if you look at he's not a doctor. If you look at Garhammer, he did these studies on with a force plate to show the difference in power production between what is classified as the power lifts, which would be back squat, bench press, deadlifts, to the Olympic lifts, which are clean and jerks and snatches. And there's about 5 times more power output in wattage pushed out of the clean and jerks, more of the clean and jerks than the snatch than they are in the deadlifts, back squat, bench press. So it's hard to call those lifts power lifts when really power, the wattage is significantly greater in the clean and jerks and snatch. Now, what is more beneficial for pitching? We do know that there is a study that says the most effective form of enhancing vertical jump is going to be Olympic lifting. We do have a study that says the most effective form of training for maximizing power and dynamic athletic performance is Olympic lifting, and also in transferring those velocity specificities to the skills of jumping, running, and throwing is also going to be Olympic lifting. So there is studies saying it is the best, most effective, but it doesn't mean you can't do it with power lifting. We do incorporate the deadlift, back squat, bench press into our programs because they serve a great purpose as building strength, which helps us build good elite power. But I would never ever, in my approach, which I know I'm different than most people, would never replace a power lifting or deadlift, back squat, and bench press with clean and jerks and snatch. To me, that would not make any sense at all. It would be ineffective in my approach. But I do use plyometrics because the guys who say, well, you can do plyometrics and you can use power lifts or deadlifts, back squats, bench press and have a same effect, and that's not true. There's no studies that say it's as effective. And I don't believe it's as effective, even though it does work and I do work that in, but not a reason for me to eliminate the Olympic lifts. What do you think?
When I think about powerlifting, I just think about lifts with no time into the equation. You're just you're just doing the lift. It doesn't matter how long it takes, and you're just completing the lift. When you talk about clean and jerk and snatch, there's a time component, and you put the speed into it, and the lift has to be. You get more acceleration because there's a time factor. You're actually jumping the weight instead of just moving it, and that's kind of more athletically based because when you're talking about sports, you don't have all day to complete a muscle contraction. You have a very simple, set amount of time. Like when you hit the ground, you have to be able to pop back. And strength will stabilize you, but it won't stabilize you like power will. And when we're talking about power, we're talking about anything athletic. Because when you hit the ground and your leg stabilizes and it gives 1 give, 2 gives frames, that's because you're lacking power, not necessarily strength. Your muscles did not pop back as fast as they could have. So when we look at that, we're just talking about power versus strength and why power is just an elite move, and it involves more speed and acceleration and the things that you see on an athletic playing field. And that's why guys with elite power transition their skills to the field much better than a guy that's just a pure strength guy, which is more the powerlifting 3 lifts, back squat, deadlift, and bench press. There's really not a time factor like the clean. If you don't accelerate the clean at the end, you will not jump the weight and you will never get it to a catch position.
And also guys say too, well, because they don't like all the challenges of racking the weight, well, can I just do high pulls and jumps? Of course, you do get the benefits of a power training moving the weight. But there's a huge benefit in catching the weight, because in catching the weight and stopping the load quickly, you're activating probably more motor units. I truly believe way more motor units than you activated in lifting and triple extending or jumping the weight. So you can cut that part out, but you're also losing a lot of the power training that I think is really valuable in the Olympic lifts. So what's your experience in doing the Olympic lifts over strength training, I guess?
Kevin had a great response. I was going to get into that too, about how the timing aspect of it with a power lift, that you can have all the time in the world to muster all of your power. And in pitching, it's very fast. You go max effort and you throw the ball. You don't have all the time in the world to like get a running start and like put everything together. So that's where the Olympic lifting comes in, with the clean and jerk and stuff like that. Or, well, we don't really do the jerk part that much, but the clean, you're firing the muscles really quick, just like in a pitching motion. You're going to fire the muscles really quick to create the velocity. So that's pretty much all I would have to say.
Okay, we do the jerk, we just don't do it as heavy of a load. What else you got to say?
When you think about a muscle contraction, the pattern is like a V, and as you're going down eccentrically or loading your muscles, you're gathering force, and then there's a pattern, there's a bottom spot, and then there's an up spot. Well, when we're talking about building force in that V pattern, you won't build maximal force in maybe the 0.3 seconds that you have to load in your pitching. So you don't always get the maximal force out of your muscles that you would. So getting that V to shrink and shrink and shrink and get closer together is crucial. And we do that through a couple of different methods, but power cleaning is one of the best ones to do it. It's just because you become more and more explosive, and the more your power goes up, the faster your muscle is going to be able to react. And working the central nervous system all the time is going to give you the ability to not have to use your brain, and you're going to eventually be able to, it will communicate with your brainstem, and you won't have to go all the way to the brain. You'll just get that reaction, and it'll be a lot quicker than you've ever imagined when you start to really push your body into those places.
Well, that's why we need to back squat heavy and stuff too, to build the absolute strength, so you can start tapping into it with the quicker exercises and stuff too.
Yeah, having a good squat, good front squat, really helps you increase your power clean max as you're working on the max. What would you say to guys that feel like I mean, you know guys that have been through this program, and they get to the place that gets so much pressure about doing the cleans that they're just like, well, screw it, I'm gonna eliminate the cleans, and then I'm just gonna keep, after all those years of training the cleans, I'm just gonna, mix in plyos with my heavy strength stuff. Do you feel like eventually those guys are gonna be regretting that decision?
Absolutely. I think that the clean, once you get the technique down, you're a special athlete at that point, because most of the athletes that these strength coaches have to deal with, they don't have time to teach them the clean. So there's pressure not to clean, because they don't want to put the pressure on themselves to have to teach the clean, because they don't have time with the athletes. They get them for a very limited amount of time. So 3 weeks, 4 weeks of doing lightweight teaching technique work is not something they have time for. And they know the cleans are some of the best lifts. The research points to it all day. You can't argue that. But the fact is they'll get around it by implementing other lifts that do not take as much technique, as much timing, and things like that. And I think that the cleans, not only they enhance your power, they teach you how to time your power and do other things athletically that you don't get from the other lifts. So I think that's a shortcut for some strength coaches, is to escape that and put other things in, is because they don't have the time to sit there and really coach the technique. Because the clean is a little dangerous if you're not doing it completely right. So if you're not catching high, you're catching low elbows, yeah, you're putting a lot of force on that scap and pulling it down and stuff like that. But we never let our lifters do that. We coach absolutely perfect technique here, and if you're not doing that, we're always on you. I mean, when you see us in videos, maybe we're going for a max and it might be a little low or something like that. As we approach maxes, sometimes that happens, but that is not a typical lift. We coach all the proper technique, getting the elbows up, getting in a nice catch position, letting it land on your shoulders, not catching it in your hands, doing the right things. And I think that's the way you protect yourself, and that's how you make the clean, you bring the clean in. And that's why they don't bring the clean in, it's just because it's so technical and it takes time, and it's an art form. It's almost like the pitching delivery. You have to work at it, and there's different sequencing and stuff like that.
Yeah, but at the same time too, studies show that as you technically train something as highly technical as the clean, that you're becoming more dynamic, your central nervous system is becoming more efficient. So therefore, when you get on the mound, watch what happens to your pitching mechanics. It gets more efficient as well. So it's not time lost. A lot of coaches think, well, I've got to spend all this time coaching him technique and something that he doesn't even do in the field. But that's going to transfer. So it's not time lost in the gym from doing your throws in the field. Wouldn't you feel that that's correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So don't feel that way. Understand that that's going to support your efficiencies on the mound as well. That's a great question. You know, we'll always talk Olympic lifting. We've stood strong by Olympic lifting. I always said if I took out Olympic lifting out of my program, I would probably have hundreds and hundreds of more people coming to my camp. I've stood strong by it because we know if it's coached well and if you give it time and you understand the process behind it, it's the most valuable, really valuable component to building the high velocity pitcher. And that's really how we get our testimonials. If you listen to every testimonial, the clean was a significant part of their gain, and they admit that in the video. And Kevin Bean, that has the highest power to weight ratio ever to come in here, he's cleaned what, 320?
320 power.
320 power clean?
330 full.
330 full. We don't really do a lot of full here, but when you get to his level, you can start doing fulls because you're doing so much weight. But he has the highest power to weight ratio here, and he's had a lot of success with velocity, and he was could touch 91 at that point. And then he went to the doctor and found out he didn't have a UCL. So really impressive what he did with his power production. And so it's obviously a big part of this approach, but we do want you to understand a lot about it. If you have more questions, please keep asking them. We have a ton of research behind it, and it gives us the confidence to coach it and promote it as a key part to our velocity enhancement programs. All right, so if you have a question, that was a great one. Go to Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, @TopVelocity, hashtag pitching tips, ask your question, and we're gonna answer it on the next episode.
Boys. Yeah. Hold on, we them boys. Hold on, we them boys.